Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Islamic SHAHADA channel. In the heart of Europe, a quiet revolution is taking place, one that few people fully understand. Islam, once considered a foreign religion on French soil, has grown steadily over the past century and is now the second largest faith in the country. With an estimated 6 to 7 million followers, accounting for roughly 10% of the population, it has surpassed other religions like Protestantism and Judaism, reshaping the spiritual landscape of France. But this story didn't happen overnight. It traces back to the early 20th century when small Muslim communities began forming, and the Great Mosque of Paris was established in 1922 as a symbol of official recognition. Waves of immigration from North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia brought not just faith, but also vibrant cultures and traditions that continue to influence neighborhoods, markets, and daily life across the country. Yet, despite this growing presence, much of what is happening remains unseen or misunderstood by the wider public. Some celebrate it as a sign of diversity and tolerance. Others see it as a challenge to France's strict secular values. How did Islam come to grow so rapidly in the heart of a nation known for its secularism? And what is the media not telling us about this hidden rise? In this documentary, we will uncover the history, the struggles, and the untold stories of France's Muslim communities, exploring how they have quietly become an essential part of modern French society. Islam is now the second largest religion in France, with an estimated 6 to 7 million followers, making up roughly 10% of the nation's population. The majority of French Muslims adhere to Sunni Islam, while smaller communities practice Shia Islam, Sufism, or Ibadi traditions. These numbers only begin to tell the story, as the community is remarkably diverse, representing people from North Africa, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa, many of whom trace their roots to former French colonies. Over the past few decades, religious observance among Muslims in France has increased significantly. Studies show that daily prayer among practicing Muslims rose from around 31% in 1994 to nearly 39% by 2008. Attendance at Friday prayers in mosques also climbed from 16% to 23% during the same period, and participation in Ramadan fasting increased from 60% to 70%. These figures highlight not only the growth of the Muslim population, but also the deepening of religious practice within the community. Despite these numbers, Muslims in France continue to face social and economic challenges. Discrimination and marginalization affect access to education, employment, and public services, and negative stereotypes persist in media and popular discourse. Yet, the community also makes substantial contributions to French society. French Muslims are active in education, business, arts, and even politics, with some holding influential positions that bridge cultural gaps and help shape the country's evolving identity. Urban areas, in particular, have become vibrant centers of Muslim life, with halal restaurants, cultural festivals, and community organizations thriving alongside broader French society. This integration of faith, culture, and daily life illustrates a nuanced reality. Muslims are not just a minority in France. They are an essential part of the nation's social and cultural fabric. The roots of Islam in France stretch back to the 19th century, largely tied to the country's colonial history in North Africa. During the French colonization of Algeria, which began in 1830, many Algerians were brought to France as laborers, soldiers, and servants. These early arrivals laid the foundation for a Muslim presence in metropolitan France, long before mass migration would transform the religious landscape. After World War I, France faced severe labor shortages as the country rebuilt from the devastation of the conflict. The French government actively recruited workers from its North African colonies, including Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, to fill the gaps in factories, mines, and infrastructure projects. This migration wave continued and even accelerated after World War II, as France embarked on a period of rapid economic growth and urban development. Muslim communities began to establish themselves more permanently in French cities, particularly in industrial centers and port towns. To accommodate their religious needs, early mosques were established primarily for immigrant workers. The Great Mosque of Paris, inaugurated in 1926, became a landmark of Islamic presence in the country. It was built not only as a place of worship, but also as a cultural center, offering education, legal assistance, and a connection to heritage for the growing Muslim community. Smaller mosques and prayer spaces soon appeared in other cities, serving as hubs for social support and community life. Colonialism left a lasting impact on the social and political dynamics between Muslims and the wider French population. On one hand, it created economic opportunities and facilitated the migration that would sustain Muslim communities for generations. On the other hand, colonial hierarchies and racial prejudices carried over, shaping social perceptions and sometimes fueling tensions. These early experiences set the stage for the complex relationship between Islam and French society, a relationship defined by both integration and marginalization, by visibility and invisibility, long before Islam became the second largest religion in the country. At the heart of France's modern identity lies the principle of laïcité, a strict form of secularism that enforces the separation of religion and state. Established in law in 1905, laïcité was designed to protect freedom of belief while keeping public institutions free from religious influence. In theory, it guarantees equality and neutrality, but in practice, it has become one of the most controversial aspects of French society, especially for the country's growing Muslim population. One of the most widely debated applications of laïcité is the prohibition of conspicuous religious symbols in public schools, including the hijab, kippah, and large crosses. Introduced in 2004, this law sparked heated debates across the country. For many Muslim women, wearing the hijab is not merely a cultural choice, but a deeply held expression of faith. Being forced to remove it in educational settings felt to many like an infringement on personal and religious freedom. Similar restrictions have been applied to other public spaces and government offices, reinforcing tensions between secular ideals and religious practice. The implementation of these policies has produced strong reactions within the Muslim community. Some see laïcité as an existential challenge, a system that singles them out and marginalizes their identity. Others attempt to navigate the rules creatively, balancing religious observance with civic participation. Meanwhile, public discourse often portrays Islam as inherently incompatible with French values, exacerbating misunderstandings and fueling political controversies. These debates go beyond mere clothing. They reflect a broader struggle over belonging, identity, and the role of religion in public life. Laïcité, intended to unify, has often exposed divisions, highlighting the difficult balancing act France faces, maintaining secularism while accommodating the beliefs of a diverse and growing population. The controversy surrounding this principle continues to shape national politics, media narratives, and the everyday lives of millions of Muslims across the country. Mosques in France are more than just places of worship. They are the beating heart of Muslim communities, offering both spiritual guidance and social cohesion. Among them, the Great Mosque of Paris stands out as a symbol of moderate Islam and cultural integration. Built in 1926, it not only serves as a center for prayer, but also functions as a hub for education, legal aid, and cultural events, bridging the gap between Muslim communities and broader French society. Its architecture and programs have made it a landmark of tolerance and dialogue, embodying an Islam that seeks coexistence within a secular nation. Beyond individual mosques, organizational structures play a critical role in representing Muslims on the national stage. The Conseil Français du Culte Musulman, CFCM, established in 2003, is the official umbrella organization recognized by the French government. Its mission is to coordinate Muslim affairs, advise authorities on religious matters, and ensure the community's representation in public discourse. However, internal divisions between different ethnic, theological, and political groups, as well as external scrutiny from state institutions and the media, have often complicated its effectiveness. These internal and external challenges illustrate the difficulties in uniting a diverse and decentralized Muslim population under a single representative body. What many people rarely know is that mosques and organizations in France are also deeply involved in cultural diplomacy and social work. They organize language and vocational classes, youth programs, interfaith dialogues, and charity initiatives that extend beyond the Muslim population. In doing so, they not only preserve cultural and religious identity, but also contribute positively to local communities, challenging the stereotype of isolation often associated with Muslims in France. These mosques and organizations form a complex network that shapes the daily lives of millions. They are centers of faith, community, and cultural negotiation, quietly influencing urban life while navigating the tensions between tradition, modernity, and the demands of a secular state. France has faced a series of devastating terrorist attacks over the past decade, events that have profoundly shaped public perception of Islam in the country. The Charlie Hebdo attack in January 2015, which targeted the satirical newspaper, and the Bataclan massacre during the November 2015 Paris attacks, which claimed 130 lives, became global symbols of the threat of radical extremism. These tragedies sparked national debates over security, immigration, and the place of Islam in French society. Media coverage often portrayed a direct link between Islam and violence, creating a powerful narrative that has unfairly stigmatized the majority of French Muslims. However, experts emphasize that terrorism is the work of a tiny minority, and that religion itself is not the cause. Studies indicate that social and economic marginalization, discrimination, lack of employment opportunities, poor access to education, and social isolation play central roles in the radicalization process. Many attacks have originated from individuals living in the country's urban suburbs, or banlieues, where residents, often descendants of North African immigrants, experience structural inequality and social exclusion. These pressures can make young people vulnerable to extremist ideologies that promise identity, purpose, and belonging. Importantly, research consistently shows that overwhelming majorities of French Muslims reject violence and radicalism. According to surveys by Pew Research and French institutions, less than 1% of Muslims express any support for terrorism, while the vast majority are committed to peaceful coexistence and integration into society. Nevertheless, public perception often does not align with this reality. Muslims frequently face scrutiny, suspicion, and stereotyping in workplaces, schools, and public spaces, creating a persistent stigma that affects daily life and social cohesion. The consequences of this stigma are tangible. Many Muslim youths feel caught between cultural and religious identity and the expectations of a secular society that often views them as outsiders. Discrimination can reinforce feelings of alienation, making social mobility more difficult and exacerbating tensions between communities. At the same time, Muslim leaders and organizations have worked tirelessly to counter extremism, promoting interfaith dialogue, youth programs, educational initiatives, and community engagement. The situation reveals a paradox. While Islam in France is overwhelmingly peaceful, the perception of threat remains widespread, amplified by media narratives, political rhetoric, and isolated incidents of violence. Understanding this nuance is essential. Radicalization is not an inevitable outcome of religious belief. It is often a symptom of broader social, economic, and political pressures. Recognizing this distinction allows us to see French Muslims as a diverse, contributing, and largely law-abiding population navigating a complex landscape of prejudice, fear, and misunderstanding. For young Muslims in France, identity is often a complex and sometimes conflicting journey. Growing up in a country that values secularism and national cohesion, while simultaneously being part of a religious and cultural minority, creates unique challenges. Many young people navigate a tension between their Muslim heritage and their French citizenship, balancing faith, family expectations, and societal pressures. This dual identity can lead to internal conflicts, as they strive to belong to both communities while often feeling fully accepted by neither. Discrimination remains a persistent reality. Studies and surveys have documented that Muslim youths frequently face bias in schools and universities, from lower expectations by teachers to subtle social exclusion from peers. In the labor market, graduates with North African or Muslim-sounding names are statistically less likely to receive job interviews, even when their qualifications match those of non-Muslim peers. These obstacles not only affect personal development, but also shape broader perceptions of social inclusion and fairness, influencing how young Muslims see themselves and their role in French society. Yet, in response to these challenges, a vibrant urban Islam has emerged. Young Muslims are reshaping religious expression and community engagement through contemporary culture, digital platforms, and creative initiatives. Mosques continue to serve as centers of social life, offering youth programs, mentorship, and cultural activities, while online communities provide spaces for discussion, identity exploration, and solidarity. Music, fashion, sports, and other aspects of pop culture have become vehicles for expressing faith, heritage, and social commentary, blending tradition with modernity in ways that resonate across urban environments. This generation embodies resilience and adaptation. While they confront prejudice and systemic barriers, they also innovate, redefine what it means to be Muslim in France, and contribute to a more pluralistic society. Their experiences illustrate the dynamic interplay between faith, culture, and citizenship, revealing a population that is both rooted in tradition and actively shaping the future of French society. The economic footprint of France's Muslim population is both significant and multifaceted. Many Muslim immigrants and their descendants are employed in key sectors such as services, construction, healthcare, and logistics, contributing substantially to the country's labor force and economic development. From nurses and engineers to small business owners and entrepreneurs, their work underpins essential aspects of French urban life and industry. Much of this contribution is rooted in historical migration patterns. Following France's colonial ventures in North Africa, large waves of migrants arrived from Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, particularly after World War I and II. These communities not only filled labor shortages in rebuilding France, but also laid the foundation for lasting cultural and economic ties. Over generations, families have integrated into urban economies, establishing businesses, participating in trade, and creating vibrant community networks that support social mobility and cohesion. At the same time, this economic and social integration has not been without controversy. In many urban suburbs, or banlieues, where a high concentration of North African origin residents live, economic opportunities remain limited. Unemployment and underemployment are disproportionately high, and poverty often intersects with ethnic and religious identity. These conditions have fueled social tensions, occasionally erupting into unrest or publicized protests, which in turn influence public perception of Muslims in France. Media narratives frequently amplify these tensions, creating a cycle where structural inequalities are interpreted as cultural or religious problems. Despite these challenges, Muslim communities continue to play a vital social role. Community organizations, mosques, and local initiatives provide education, vocational training, and cultural programs, strengthening social bonds and fostering civic participation. Through these efforts, Muslims in France not only contribute economically, but also serve as active agents of social resilience, bridging gaps between minority populations and mainstream society. Their story illustrates a complex but essential interplay between migration, labor, and social integration, highlighting how Islam has become an inseparable part of France's economic and urban landscape. Despite being the second largest religious group in France, Muslims remain significantly underrepresented in national and local politics. Very few occupy high-ranking positions in government, parliament, or the civil service, a situation shaped by historical, social, and structural factors, including discrimination, lack of political networks, and cultural barriers. However, representation does exist at the local level, where Muslim politicians, community leaders, and activists have made meaningful contributions. In several cities and suburbs, Muslim mayors, council members, and civic organizers play key roles in addressing social issues, fostering community cohesion, and advocating for minority rights. Media portrayal of Muslim political involvement often exaggerates their presence and influence, creating misleading narratives that can fuel public anxiety and political debate. Headlines frequently suggest a growing Muslim political threat or imply that Islam is seeking to dominate public institutions, despite evidence showing that political engagement among French Muslims is generally limited and diverse in its priorities. Many young Muslims focus on local activism, social work, or community advocacy rather than national politics, emphasizing education, cultural preservation, and economic participation over high-profile political power. This gap between perception and reality has broader implications. Misrepresentation in media contributes to stereotypes, reinforces societal prejudices, and can marginalize communities further. At the same time, the visible achievements of local leaders and activists highlight the resilience, adaptability, and civic engagement of French Muslims, demonstrating that while they may face barriers at the top, they remain active contributors to the democratic and social life of the country. Beyond politics, religion, and social challenges, Islam in France has also left a profound mark on the country's popular culture and urban identity. Muslim communities have contributed to a vibrant cultural landscape, blending tradition with modernity in ways that resonate across generations. Halal food, for example, is now widely available in major cities, not only serving religious dietary needs, but also influencing French culinary trends. Restaurants, street food vendors, and specialty markets introduce flavors and dishes that have become part of the urban experience, enjoyed by Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Fashion is another area where Muslim influence is highly visible. Modest fashion brands, designers, and streetwear initiatives have gained prominence, particularly among young urban Muslims, creating a dynamic industry that fuses style, faith, and cultural expression. Music, especially rap and hip-hop, has also become a platform for expressing identity, social concerns, and cultural pride. Muslim artists frequently address issues such as discrimination, migration, and community resilience, while incorporating references to faith and heritage, making their work both socially relevant and artistically innovative. Cultural festivals, exhibitions, and community events further showcase the creativity and contributions of French Muslims. From art exhibits celebrating Islamic heritage to interfaith cultural dialogues, these activities foster inclusion and mutual understanding. This urban Islam demonstrates how religion can coexist with contemporary culture, enriching public life while allowing young Muslims to assert their identity in meaningful, positive ways. By shaping food, fashion, music, and art, Islam has become a defining element of modern urban identity in France. It is a testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and cultural vitality of Muslim communities, highlighting that beyond controversy and challenges, Islam has played a crucial role in creating a dynamic, diverse, and innovative social landscape. The story of Islam in France is one of growth, resilience, and cultural contribution, but it is also a story marked by significant challenges and ongoing controversies. Social integration remains a central concern. Many Muslims, particularly in urban suburbs or banlieues, continue to face structural barriers, including discrimination in education, employment, and housing. These obstacles not only limit opportunities, but also contribute to feelings of marginalization, making the delicate balance between religious identity and national belonging a daily struggle for many. The debate over freedom of religion versus secularism remains a persistent source of tension. France's strict laïcité laws, designed to separate religion from public institutions, often clash with the personal and communal religious practices of Muslims. Controversies over the hijab in schools, the wearing of religious symbols in public spaces, and dietary accommodations in institutions illustrate the ongoing struggle to reconcile individual rights with a secular framework. These debates fuel political polarization and sometimes amplify societal fears, creating friction between different communities. Concerns about radicalization and security further complicate the narrative. While the vast majority of Muslims reject violence, isolated incidents of terrorism and extremist activity have heightened scrutiny and stigmatization. This has led to a cycle where communities are judged collectively for the actions of a few, reinforcing stereotypes and complicating efforts toward genuine social cohesion. The media often highlights these controversies, contributing to public anxiety and shaping perceptions that may not align with reality. Yet, despite these challenges, Muslim communities continue to adapt, contribute, and engage. Through civic participation, cultural initiatives, economic activity, and educational efforts, they assert their presence and resilience. Understanding these challenges, social, political, and cultural, is essential for appreciating the full story of Islam in France. It is a narrative not only of struggle, but also of perseverance, creativity, and the ongoing negotiation of identity within a complex modern society. Looking toward the mid-21st century, the landscape of Islam in France is expected to undergo significant transformations, both in scale and societal impact. Current demographic studies suggest that by 2050, Muslims could account for 12 to 15% of the French population, potentially reaching between 8 and 10 million people. This growth is influenced not only by immigration from North Africa, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa, but also by higher birth rates among Muslim families and the continued establishment of multi-generational communities in urban and suburban areas. Such projections indicate that Islam will increasingly shape the social fabric of France, influencing demographics, public policy, and cultural identity. Economically, this growing population presents both opportunities and challenges. French Muslims are active in sectors ranging from services, construction, and healthcare to entrepreneurship and the creative industries. As their numbers grow, so too does their potential to influence labor markets, consumer trends, and urban economic development. Cities like Paris, Lyon, and Marseille are already experiencing the integration of Muslim-owned businesses, halal markets, and cultural enterprises that enrich local economies. Furthermore, the younger generation is becoming more educated and professionally ambitious, increasing the likelihood of upward mobility and expanded influence in various economic sectors. Politically, the rise of Islam in France could gradually reshape representation and participation. While Muslims remain underrepresented at the national level, local politics provides a platform for community leaders, activists, and young politicians to influence policy, advocate for minority rights, and address issues of integration and equality. Over time, increased civic engagement may lead to a more visible presence in national debates, potentially affecting legislation related to secularism, religious freedoms, social justice, and anti-discrimination policies. Culturally, Islam's influence on French urban life is expected to deepen. Halal cuisine, fashion, music, particularly hip-hop and rap, and cultural festivals are increasingly integrated into the broader French cultural landscape. These forms of cultural expression not only reinforce identity within Muslim communities, but also contribute to a multicultural urban identity that blends tradition with contemporary creativity. Art, literature, and media representation will likely continue to reflect the complexities of Muslim life in France, offering new narratives that challenge stereotypes and foster intercultural understanding. Yet, this projected growth also raises pressing questions and potential challenges. How will French society balance the principles of laïcité with the growing demand for religious accommodation? How will social integration evolve in the face of persistent discrimination, economic inequality, and political polarization? Will the media continue to portray Islam in a nuanced, balanced manner, or will sensationalism and fear dominate public discourse? The answers will shape not only the future of Muslims in France, but also the country's broader social cohesion and national identity. Ultimately, the future of Islam in France is not predetermined. It is the product of demographic trends, governmental policies, community resilience, and the daily choices of millions of individuals negotiating identity, faith, and belonging. By 2050, Islam will likely be an even more integral part of French society, influencing politics, economics, education, and culture. France will be tested on its ability to embrace diversity, foster dialogue, and build a society where religious pluralism coexists with secular governance. In many ways, the trajectory of Islam in France reflects a global story. The challenge of integrating tradition with modernity, faith with civic life, and cultural heritage with national identity in an increasingly interconnected world. As we reflect on the journey of Islam in France, one thing becomes clear. Islam is no longer merely a minority faith, it has become an integral part of modern French identity. From its early roots in the colonial era to the vibrant, multi-generational communities of today, Muslims have contributed to the cultural, social, economic, and political fabric of the nation. Their presence challenges simplistic narratives and invites a deeper understanding of what it means to be French in the 21st century. The dynamics of France today are defined by a delicate balance between secular traditions and religious diversity. Principles like laïcité continue to shape public life, while Muslim communities navigate complex challenges, from discrimination and social integration to cultural expression and civic participation. At the same time, Islam influences urban culture, education, politics, and public discourse, reflecting a nuanced interplay between faith, identity, and modern society. Ultimately, the story of Islam in France is not just about mosques or population numbers. It is a story of transformation, cultural, social, and political, that often remains unseen in mainstream narratives. It is a testament to resilience, creativity, and the ongoing negotiation of identity in a society grappling with modernity, diversity, and pluralism. As one observer aptly summarized, Islam in France is not just about mosques or numbers, but about the cultural, social, and political transformation that often goes unnoticed. This transformation continues to unfold, posing questions, challenges, and opportunities for France and its people. How the nation embraces this change will define not only the future of Islam in France, but also the very character of French society in the decades to come. Thanks for watching until the end. I hope it was useful. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.